Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to add new ranged weapons to Survival Game Kit. First thing you're going to need is your new skeletal mesh for your weapon. You'll need a physics asset. If you don't have one, you can right click your skeletal mesh, go to create, physics asset, create and assign. That will create one. Next you're going to need your actual skeleton for your skeletal mesh. Then ideally you'll have reload animations for both your weapon and your character. In Survival Game Kit, reloading is done in two parts. It's essentially removing and then attaching a new magazine. So that's why we have an attach and detach for both the character and the weapon. Quick rundown of how reloading works in games. The character does not attach the magazine to their hand. What happens is the weapon plays an animation for reloading and the character plays an animation for the reloading. Those animations are made for each other and are made together in a 3D modeling program, and it gives the appearance that the magazine's actually attached to the character's hand, but in reality it's not. It's two separate animations played at the same time. So and if you don't know how to create animations or create reload animations, you will need to go and look into that, because that requires knowledge about 3D modeling programs and those sorts of things. So that will be specific to the program you use. You'll have to go and look into that. You don't have to have these animations for it to work. We can use the animations included in Survival Game Kit, but keep in mind those animations are made for the weapons in Survival Game Kit, so it might not look great on your weapon. So carrying on, we've got attach and detach animations. If you only have, say, a reload animation for your character and reload for your weapon, what you can do to split it into an attach and detach is you can go in, open up the animation like this. You can select a frame using the bar down here. You want to make sure that you get it exactly on a frame, so I'll just click to previous frame, for example. You can see that I'm exactly on 17. You can right click and you can either remove all of the frames before this current frame, so remove all of these, or you can remove them after, so all of these. And using that, you can essentially split an animation in two. And the easiest way to do that is just duplicate the animation, remove the beginning for one of them and the end for the other, and then you'll have your attach and detach animations separated. So that's how you would do that. Again, if you don't have your own reload animations, you can still follow this. You just won't have reload animations by the end. That's something you can add in later on if you want to. So getting started, we're going to jump into the Survival Game Kit project, then blueprints, then items and holdable items. And the easiest way to get started creating a new ranged weapon is to just duplicate one that already exists. That way a lot of the default settings are set up for us. Some basic animations are set that we can test with, and then if we want to change them, we can just go in and change them. So for this video, I am going to just create a duplicate of the M4. If you're making like a shotgun, you may want to duplicate the M1982 because that's set up a little bit more for a shotgun, but the differences are quite small and they're quite easy to change. So we're just going to create a duplicate of the M4. I'm going to call mine video gun, and then we can open that up. So once we have that open, I'll just bring that over here. We've got all of our settings for our weapon. So the first thing we're going to do is, if you're not already, click the open full blueprint editor, and I'll bring that back here. And we can double click on any of the components here to go to the viewport. So we're in the viewport now. I've got my M4 mesh here. You can change it by selecting the mesh, going to the skeletal mesh option, and you can find your skeletal mesh. So I'm using the video gun. It's going to look the same because it is the M4, but I am actually using my video gun mesh here. So we've got that set up now. One thing you might want to adjust is the bullet spawn location. If your gun's longer or smaller, you may want to adjust this. I'd recommend turn off snapping here. I'd recommend keeping it just a little bit away from the muzzle so you don't get any interference or anything. So something like this would be fine, but you may want to adjust that. Next up, I'm going to be showing you how to change the animations. So we're going to go to class defaults, and we're going to search for third person animations, like that. And in our third person animations, we can set different animations depending on the skeletal mesh of our character. This is useful if you have male or female meshes or various other things. You can set specific animations for a specific character mesh. To do that, you just click this little plus arrow and you've got a new set of animations, and you can set the character mesh. I'm just going to delete this for now. Once we're in our animations, you can see we've got upper body and lower body. Upper body are from the waist up, lower body is waist down. And the reason we do this is because you can essentially have one or two lower body running around animations and then just change out the top, the upper body animations depending on the weapon. This can save a lot of time having to create new running animations for every gun, so we don't have to worry about doing that anymore. So opening up upper body animations, you can see we've got different animations for each stance. If you don't know what the stances are, there's information in the documentation that you can check out, but essentially these are the animations used depending on the character's stance. For this video, I'm mainly just going to focus on combat because most people are probably just going to be using these anyway. Also aimed, actually. Standard typically is when the gun is lowered or the character's in a more relaxed state. Something I will say is when you're in a standard combat stance, you can see if I open up the idle, he's got the gun lowered. If you want this kind of animation style, you need to make sure that disabled right hand IK is added to the animation, but you only want to do this for animations where the gun is lowered like this, not when you're aiming at things or running around with the gun raised. So that's just a side note if you're adding standard animations. But like I said, for this video we won't really be touching on that too much. If you have custom animations that you want to use for any of these different stances or states that the character is in, you can pause the video now and go through and start changing those out. Then I'll quickly show you the lower body. So it's really the similar thing again. We've got standard animations, so this is when the character's in a relaxed sort of non-combat state, and then combat and aimed share the same lower body animations. Here then you've just got the blend space for movement, crouch movement, and then the idle for crouching and idle for normal standing. Last up we've got the jump animations, just very standard jump start, jump loop and jump end animations here. Because we duplicate the M4, we've actually got all of the sort of M4 animations already set, which is what I'm going to be using for the sake of this video. But again, if you have custom animations, this is where you'd go to change them for the third person. And now I'm going to show you where you can change them for first person. So we'll just search first person animations, and it's very similar setup. You can see we can set a mesh, so we can set different animations for different skeletal meshes, and then opening this up, it's similar to the third person animation settings, but there's actually less of them just because the first person animations are just the arms. So we've got our standard, aimed, and combat. If we open these up, you can see they're just the same animations that I was using in the third person, but with some tweaks. We've got like first person specific for sprinting. I believe there's first person specific for sprinting and aimed as well. So for the most part you could probably use the same animations, but if you have custom ones for your first person, then you may want to tweak these however you like. And then we've got the normal jump animations here as well for the first person arms. If you're wondering what controls the body that you see when you look down in first person, that's controlled by the third person animations as well. So we don't need to set different animations for those, it will just use the third person ones. So next up, the first thing we need to do is create an actual item for our new holdable. So to do that, I'm going to go to the item list, which is in the items folder in the blueprints. And in here we're going to create a new row, and I'm just going to double click on the name and call it weapon underscore video gun. You can call yours whatever you like. I'm not going to go into detail about filling out all of this information because I have a separate video called Adding New Items that I explain all of this in detail. You can check that out and then come back to this video once you're done if you like, but I'd advise checking that out. I'm going to leave most of this as what it is by default. The only difference is inventory actions are basically when you right click on an item when it's in the inventory, those are the actions that come up. So right now we don't have any set, but I'm going to add a couple and open up the first one. And the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to select equipped weapon. This basically, when we select this option in the item menu, this will take the weapon from the inventory and try to put it in one of the weapon slots. If you don't want your gun to be able to go into weapon slots, then you don't have to add this if you don't want to, but I'm going to do this. And pardon me. The action name is just the UI name that you'll see when you right click the item. So I'm just going to call mine equip. And then the second one is going to be hold and unhold. This is important and you'll need to add this. This is essentially when the character tries to hold the weapon. So I'm going to just change this to hold, like that. We don't have to worry about, actually we can add world actions. World actions are when you look at an item that's actually in the world, you get that selection menu and you can choose what you want to do. If you want to, you can add a new element and you can select equip weapon or equip or hold, sorry, so that the character will instantly equip it to their back or instantly try and hold it. We can add equip weapon, and again, same thing. This is just the name that you'll see in the UI. So I'm just going to put equip, then create another one for holding, like this, hold. So now when we right click the item in the inventory, we'll get the option to equip or hold, and if we look at it in the world, we'll be able to pick it up, equip it or hold it. Quick use action is basically when the item's in the quick bar. If you click the button on your keyboard that's bound to that quick slot, this is the action that will be done. Most of the time you'll probably want this on hold/unhold for weapons, but it's up to you. You can play about with it if you want. Next up, we need to set the skeletal mesh. So I'm going to set this to my video gun, like that. And our world class, we need to set to skeletal, and we need it to be the BP skeletal mesh, sorry, skeletal master item, like that. Next, we need to set our icons up so we can actually see the item in the inventory. I'm just going to reuse my M4 icons because I already have them. You can maybe pause the video here and check out the icon maker video that I have on my channel, where I explain the icon maker that's actually included in Survival Game Kit. That's for if you don't have icons already for your gun. So you can check that out if you want to. But I'm just going to use the M4A4 underscore inventory icon. I'm going to copy and paste this for the move icon. Quick slot, I think I have one as well. So quick slot, yeah. And then I'm just going to copy this and paste it in for the rest of, actually equipment, I've got a separate one as well. So M4A4 equipment icon, and we'll do it for the weapon as well. So that's my icon setup. Again, you'll probably have different ones for your gun, but you can use the M4 ones if you want as an example. Next up, we need to open up the holdable details. Now, I'll explain how these work because it's kind of relevant to the video. Holdable slots are basically the weapon slots in our equipment menu that this gun can be equipped to. So for this video, I'm just going to set it both to primary and secondary. You can, change these if you want. Holdable class, this is important. We need to set this to the blueprint we created earlier. So for me, that's the video gun, the BP video gun. The holdable slot sockets, so these are basically if our weapon is in the primary weapon slot, when it's in the primary weapon slot, it will be attached to the primary socket on our character's skeleton. So this is what controls what socket our weapon is attached to when it's on our back, when we're running around in the world. So if you don't want it attached to your character's back at all, you can just remove these and it will disappear when you unequip. So you can play about these, and if you want to change the weapon's socket location, you can actually go to the character skeleton, find the primary socket, and you can move it, and it will move the weapon's location when it's on the character's back. Next, we've got equipped and unequipped animations. You may have your own. If you don't, you can use the ones included with Survival Game Kit. And we've got the skeletal mesh here because we can, again, we can set different animations for different, say like male and female characters if you wanted to. So for this, I'm just going to set this to mannequin. We'll select the just SK mannequin, and I'm going to use the equipped item animation, and we can actually just copy the equipped montage here and paste it into unequipped. I know it's called equipped item, but it can be used to unequipped item as well, so we don't have to worry about that. Again, you may have your own animations, but you can just use the included ones. And then the last option is only holdable when equipped. So this basically means that the weapon has to be in a, say, primary or secondary weapon slot for the character to be able to hold it. So you couldn't right click it in the backpack, for example, and hold it if this was true. You can set this to true if you want. I'm going to leave it as false just for the sake of the video. And that's pretty much it. Everything we need, all the basic settings we need to get our item working. Again, if you don't know about all of these settings, go check out the adding new item video. There's loads more detail about how you can set these. And if you don't have your own icons, check out the icon maker video where I show you how to sort of create your own icons. But next we need to actually create our world item now. So we're going to go back to showcase, then to world items. Because we're using a skeletal mesh, we need to use the skeletal master item. So we're going to right click that, create child blueprint class, and we'll call this BP video gun _WI. Oh, I already have one called that because I am re-recording this, but you won't have that, so you can just call it what you want. So I'm going to just search for my one, video gun, and once you've created that new blueprint, you can open it up. And once we're in here, all we need to do is go to item, make sure that this is set to master item list, and click the drop down, and we just search for our new item. So weapon _ video gun, make sure item amount is set to 1, and that's all good. We can compile and save this now, and we can actually just drag this straight into the world, and we've got our gun. Now it's standing up like this at an angle. You can go to the item list, and if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's item offsets, so you can add an offset to rotate the gun. I think YN90 might fix this. So we can see, you may have to actually delete and redrag it into the world there. So you can see I've turned it to the side. You can see it's in the ground a little bit. You could add a little bit to the Z as well to move it up, but this is fine for me. If your mesh doesn't appear in the world, double check that you set the right item in the video gun in here. Make sure that you have set the skeletal mesh in the item list as well, and you should get the item in the world. If when we hit play, I'm going to run over to it quickly. If when you look at it you don't get the options menu come up, make sure that your weapon has a physics asset, because if it doesn't, that's basically it doesn't have any collision. So you need to make sure it has that. You can open up the skeletal mesh, go to asset details, and make sure it's set in physical asset here. So now we've got our item in world, we can start setting up our weapon to attach to the character and where it's going to be when it's attached to the character. So to do this, we're going to go to your character's skeleton. So for me and for probably most of you, that's going to be in the meshes, skeletal mesh, and we're going to find the mannequin skeleton. So we'll open that up, and we're going to select the right hand, and we're going to right click, and we're going to do add socket. Now I'm going to call mine add hand underscore r video gun. You can see we've got other sockets for other weapons. If you have like a weapon that's similar to something else, you can try and reuse its socket if you like. But for this video, I'm going to show you how to just add in a socket quickly here. So we've got our socket. What we can do now is I'm just going to roughly move it to about where the hand would hold the gun. So I'm just going to put it about here. We'll come in and edit this location later on when we can see what's happening. But for now, I'm just going to stick it about there. What we will do is we'll double click here to highlight the name, copy it, and then we want to go back to our BP video gun. And in the search, we're going to search for socket. And we're going to find the held socket. And you're going to want to make sure we paste that in. This needs to be exactly the same as the socket in your character, otherwise this won't work. So make sure you double check that just in case. So once that's done, we can compile and save. Next, we need to reset the hand IK locations for being able to move the weapon around in game. So I'll show you how to do that. We're just going to search for IK. We'll start with third person because it's a little bit easier to do. So we'll click the little default arrow here to reset all to 0, 0. And the same here, so it's all set to 0. Don't worry about scale, it should be 1. And then we can compile. Next, we're going to go to our character, our master character, and in here we're going to select the third person AO, and we're going to make sure that the location and rotation are both set to 0 on everything. And we're also going to select the first person arms and scroll down to rendering and untick visible. We'll tick this back on later, but just for now we'll leave it off, and we can compile that. So next we're going to need to add some sockets to our weapons skeleton for attachments and also for the left hand location, so the left hand knows where to go. So to do this, we're going to go to our weapons skeletal mesh. That will be wherever you've put that. And then in here, we haven't got any sockets set up yet. So on main, we're going to start by doing right click, add socket, and we're going to call this left hand. When I say add it to the main, your skeleton for your weapon will be completely different to mine. For the main skeleton bone, it's just sort of the central bone. This will be specific to your weapon, but you will want to add the left hand socket, spelt like how I've spelt it, and then I'm just going to position it roughly about where I want the left hand to be. We can come in and edit this later if we need to. Then the next one we'll do add socket. I'm going to call this one stock. So this is for the stock attachment. Put this near the end, like that, about roughly where it'd be. Let me just take a quick look at my notes. And what else do we need to add? We want to add the muzzle. So this is for muzzle attachments. And this will be near the end, like roughly about there. We will right click and add another socket. We'll call this flash. So this is where the flash effect will happen when we shoot the gun. So we move this down to about here. You may have to rotate this later on because the flash may shoot off in this direction or this direction. You can just come in and rotate this to get it to go where you want. What else do we want? We want the sight. So right click, add socket, call this sight, and we can position this roughly about where we want a sight to be, sort of here. And we need the magazine. So for me, that will be on the magazine bone. For you, again, this may be very different. It's going to depend on your weapon skeleton. I can't tell you exactly where it's going to be. So this is sort of a best, general answer I can give is attach it to your magazine bone. So for me, the socket will be called magazine, like that. So these are all the base ones. You can add all of the ones, you can go to like the M4 and see what sockets that has and add all of them if you want. Some of them you might not need, but the last one we do want to add is to the main. So we'll add another socket, and this is called camera, this is called sight camera, like that. And then we can save this, and we're ready now to position our hand-eye case. So there's one other thing we need to check before we start positioning our hand-eye case that I forgot about. We need to go back to our holdable blueprint, so the video gun blueprint. And by default, because we duplicated the M4, we just want to search for default. And you can see here we've got default attachments. So it's set for the magazine mesh and the magazine attachment and the stock attachment. Now, because I'm using the M4, these will work for me, but you probably won't be using the M4. So to get rid of these, we just go into here and we can click the little trash icon to get rid of those. So now we can hit compile, and we're ready to actually position our hand-eye case. So to do this, we're going to pop out the character window here, and I'll resize it a little bit so we can see a bit more. And we're going to want the character skeleton as well, so we'll put that down here because we may need to adjust the socket. So we'll hit the showcase, and I'm just going to click to spawn us at the camera location, and we're going to hit play, and we've got our weapon here. If when you look at it you don't see the menu, make sure that your gun has a physics asset, as I said earlier, but you should see the menu. I'm going to select hold, and you can see that our character is a bit wonky, so we're going to hit Windows key, then eject, and we can see what's going on. So I'm going to start by going to the character blueprint, select the third person AO, and we're going to start moving it about slowly to get an idea of what's going on here. So I'm going to raise it up a little bit. So if we look at the hand, it looks like our hand is pointing down but the gun's facing this way, which is fine. What we can do is in our character skeleton, we can start adjusting the socket for the gun's rotation. So I'm going to rotate it a bit like this. Yours may be completely different. Your gun might line up really well with the hand straight away, so you might not have to do this, but I'm just going to adjust this a little bit, maybe move it back. So it's in our character's hand properly now, or roughly. And now we can start adjusting back in the character blueprint. So with the third person AO selected, we can start adjusting it, rotate our hand a little bit more, maybe rotate it a bit this way. You can see our left hand needs a bit of attention as well, which we will do in a moment. We'll rotate this up, down. So we're starting to get it into a bit more of a normal position. We'll rotate it this way. Get a little bit more lined up. I'm just doing this pretty quickly. You can spend way more time getting this nice and precise. So this is roughly okay for me. I may want to move it a little bit, maybe more this way. But next I want to change the left hand, because obviously this isn't correct. Again, yours might line up just fine and you're okay. But to do that, we're going to go to our skeleton, our weapons skeleton, sorry. I'm going to drag this into our window as well. Without exiting the game. You don't want to exit the game because you will lose all of the tweaks we've just done. So in here, I'm going to find the left hand, and I should just be able to rotate this like so. And I can actually move it as well. So we'll move it, we'll roughly get it in the right position. So this will do for me. Again, you can spend way more time doing this. So I'm fairly happy with this sort of where we've got the gun to. So what we're going to do is in our character master character blueprint, we'll extend this out a little bit. With the third person AO selected, we're going to copy the location, go to our weapon holdable blueprint, and in the class defaults we'll search for IK third, and we can find the third person IK, and we're going to paste in the location. Then we'll copy the rotation and paste that into rotation like that. And then what we can do is we can just hit stop, we can compile, we can save. What we'll do next is we'll copy the third person IK transform, and we'll paste that onto the third, on the third aimed IK. So what this will do now is when we aim in, the hand will stay in exactly the same location, but we can now adjust that as well, like we just did. So I'm going to hit play again. Going to pick up the gun, and you'll see that it actually remembers where we put it. So what we do now is we can hit Windows key, eject, possess the character. We're going to right click to aim in. Then we're going to hit Windows key and eject. And so right now our character's in aimed stance. And when we're in aimed stance, what we can do is we can select the third person AO again. We can start moving this so we can position it how we want it to be when the character's aimed. So I'm just going to make it a little bit exaggerated, say put it like here. So this will be when he's aimed, and then he'll switch back to our previous stance when not aimed. And to set this, we're just going to copy the location again, go back to our video gun, and we're going to paste this location in the aimed hand IK here, and then the same with the rotation. Oh, I had the wrong thing selected. Make sure you don't do what I do. Select the third person AO and make sure you copy the location, paste that in, and the rotation like that. That's something to make sure that you do get right, that is selected when we change these values. So now we can hit stop, you can compile, and now when we hit play, we can pick up our gun. It'll be in the stance that we set it to, and then when I right click, you can see it actually moves to the aimed position like that. So now we need to set up the first person IK, which we'll set up now. So for the first person IKs, what we want to do is first we're going to select the mesh, and we're going to search for Viz, and we're going to untick visible, and we'll do the same thing for first person body. We'll untick visible there as well. Then we'll select first person arms and make sure visible is ticked on. Then we're going to go to the first person AO, and we'll get rid of this search and make sure that location and rotation are set to 0 for both of them. Then we can compile that. We'll jump back to our video gun, then class defaults, and we'll search for first person IK, and we'll do the same in here, making sure these are both set to 0 on the location and rotation. Then compile and save this. Now we're ready to position the first person in game, so we're going to hit play, pick up our gun and hold it. We'll hit V to enter first person, and you can see our gun's a bit messed up, so Windows key, eject, and we don't need to worry about this gun here. This is a shadow dummy. We're looking at this one, so we'll start by selecting the first person AO, and we can start moving this around, seeing where we want to position it. Rotate it like this. Our goal in this camera view is to just get it in front of where the camera will be so we can see what we're doing. So we'll sort of put it here. So that should be okay. I'm going to hit possess so we can see our gun now, and I'm just going to use this for you to position it now. So do this, rotate it so it's a bit flatter, rotate it towards the crosshair. So I'm fairly happy with this. That looks okay. You can spend way more time playing with it, but yeah, so what we'll do now is making sure we've got the first person AO selected. We'll copy the location, go back to our video gun, and we'll paste this into the first person IK location and do the same with rotation. Then we'll stop, compile this. we'll copy the first person IK and paste it into the first person aimed hand IK there. And we can compile and save this. Next, we're ready to position the gun when it's in ADS mode. So this is the last time we have to position hand IKs, so there's not too much more to do with this. So we'll jump back into the game and we'll hold our weapon. And if I hit V, you'll see it's remembered where our gun is. But now I'm going to right click once and we're now in aimed. So now we can start positioning the gun for aimed. So same again, we're going to select the first person AO. We're going to start moving this to get this lined up. This one can be a little bit more fiddly because you want it to line up with the crosshair, the little dot on the screen. So we'll get this lined up as best we can. Something like this. Make sure that you're always only adjusting the first person AO as well. It's easy to select something else by accident. So this looks okay to me. You can spend way more time, get a better precision, but this will do for me. So I'm going to hit Windows key, copy the location, go back to our video gun, then paste the location into the aimed hand IK, and then the same for rotation, like that. So now we've saved our gun's position, so we can jump in, double check that that all worked correctly, hit V to go in first person, we can look around, our gun's working as it should, we can aim down sights, and that's all working smoothly, so that's good. Now we just want to show our third person again, so we'll go to first person body, search for Viz, tick on visibility, and then do the same for our mesh down here. We'll search for Viz and tick on visibility so we can see our third person meshes when we play again. So now I'm just going to take you through some of the ranged weapons settings in the holdable blueprint. So to get to those, we just need to go to our holdable blueprint and then to class defaults. So to start us off, we've got ammo. Just as a short note, if I don't go into enough detail for you, you can always hover over the names of a setting and it will give you some information about it. So starting off, we've got ammo. Max ammo is the amount of ammo that can be stored in the weapon without a magazine. So for the M4, it's 1. Allowed ammo types is the types of ammo that the weapon can fire. Allow chambering reload means that you can drag and drop ammo directly onto the gun to reload ammo. This is without a magazine. If you enable allow chambering reload with a magazine, it means you can do that even if the weapon has a magazine attached. Then you've got the amount of ammo that chambering adds, and chamber next round basically means that when you attach a magazine to the weapon, a bullet is automatically transferred from the magazine into the weapon, like how a real weapon works. Then we've got the chamber sound and whether or not we can actually chamber in the inventory. So that's when you drag and drop it onto the weapon icon without the weapon being held. Then we've got shooting. Shooting delays are basically so the player can't spam click. These are the delays before the weapon can fire again. Then auto fire rate is how many shots per second the gun will fire when in auto fire mode. Burst count, number of shots per burst shot. Range is how far the bullets will travel. Weapon trace channel should be weapon at all times. If it's not, just change it to it. Single shot is if the weapon fires one bullet or not. If it's false, then the multi-shot count is how many bullets it will fire. Fire from socket is where the bullets will come from, so by default this is muzzle. And then per shot item cost is how many of the item it will use up per shot. Then you've got the fire modes that you can either delete or you can add. These are the modes that you can toggle between. Then you've got the yaw, so how much vertical and horizontal recoil there is. I'd recommend keeping these values at around sort of 0.2 for these values, but you can increase that if you want. Spread, this is how inaccurate the gun will be. So the higher the spread value, the less accurate the gun is. And you can set different values for different character states. Max spread is how the maximum amount of spread that the gun can have at one time. Then the increase per shot is how much the spread will increase as you're shooting. So if you're firing a fully automatic weapon, it'll become more inaccurate over time. And then spread reduction is how quickly the spread sort of reduces. So you can play about with those values. Distance spread, basically the further the bullet travels, the more inaccurate it becomes. You can set when this effect starts in distance and how much additional spread it can add. Then we've just got sounds that you can set. These are your character and weapon chamber animations. Sorry, not chamber. These are your character fire animations and weapon fire animations. Then chamber character animations and weapon chamber animation. So that's for when you manually load ammo directly into the gun. Then we have our animations that we were using earlier that you can play with. Use left hand where IK when sprinting. If your gun's like a rifle where you have the left hand following a socket, then you probably want this as true. But if you're using like a pistol, you'd probably want this as false. For the hand IKs, use left hand IK means that it will try to put the hand at the left hand socket. And then right hand IK is what we were setting up earlier. So if you want to use that, you need use right hand IK to be true. And then you've got the left hand sockets set here as well. Next we've got our aim offsets. Procedural means it uses the hand IKs that we set up earlier on in the video. Standard means it would just use these aim offsets down here. So if you have animation aim offsets, you can set those instead. Ranged weapons don't use special aim offset, so we don't need to use that. Elbow IK, you don't need to change. I will have some documentation on it, but you just won't need to change it. We've already covered these settings here. Then we've just got the muzzle effect and the socket that it fires from. Surface effects I'll have separate documentation on, and then you've just got the decal sizes that you can play around with. Damage, if use ammo damage values is true, the damage that's set in the item list for the ammo, so I can quickly show you. So if I select the 7.62 ammo, you can see in the ammo details there's damage values set in here. If this is true in the weapon, then those damage values will be used when firing that ammo. If this is false, then we just use the damage values set in the weapon instead. Damage is pretty simple. Hitbox, so for example if the head hitbox is hit, we deal between 40 and 60 damage to the hit actor. Damage type is used for like durability and armor. I'll have separate documentation on that, but this is where you can change it for this weapon. Then we have bleed damage. You can basically set up the weapon so it will apply bleed damage. This is how often the bleed damage is done, whether or not the bleed damage applies randomly, how much damage the bleed tick will do, min and max values, and if you have randomly applied bleed, you can set what chance and how long the bleed lasts for. Then we have some debug modes. These are useful if your weapon isn't hitting the things you expect it to. You can enable these and it will print out text on what the weapon is hitting. Next up we've got aiming, so we've got can aim. This basically means that we can go into ADS. You don't need to worry about camera debug. This is going to be removed. Then we've got our first person aimed FOV and third person aimed FOV. They pretty much do what they say. You don't need to worry about camera location. And then starting FOVs here, if you change the FOV of the character's cameras, you also need to set them up in here as well. Weapon sway is when you look around quickly, you can see the weapon kind of lags behind a little bit. It gives the feeling of it being more realistic. These are values for that, and you can play around with those as you like. Here we can set what attachments our gun allows, and they're set to the blueprint for the attachments. Then we've got default attachments, so you can set what attachments the gun actually starts with. Then you can set the slots that are available on the gun, so this is when you double click the item in the inventory, and these slots will show up. You can add more by clicking a little add, and you can see the drop down here. Next we have durability, so whether or not the weapon will fire when durability is below 0, and how much durability is used up when the weapon is fired. Then we have leaning. Again, you can enable leaning and set its values here. Clipping is when the weapon goes too close to a wall. It will rotate away from the wall so it doesn't clip through it. Those settings are here, and you can go through those if you need to. Lastly, we just go down here. Stance, there's documentation on that you can read up on. Movement speed, there's also documentation for. Camera shake, so you can enable or disable camera shake for this holdable, and you can also set which camera shake blueprints you want to use if you are using camera shake. So that's pretty much all the settings for the ranged weapons. Just as a quick side note, to change the projectile or the projectile speeds for your gun, that's actually controlled by the ammo in the item list. So if you go to the ammo, then go to ammo details, you can actually see the projectile is set here, the ammo damage, the projectile speed, and the ammo's damage type. So that's where you can set those values up. So lastly, I'm going to very quickly show you how to add a magazine item that you can attach to this new weapon. I will have a separate video on attachments that will go into much more detail, upload it at a later date. But for now, to add an attachment, we're going to go to attachment items. I'm just going to duplicate the M4 attachment here. So we'll just duplicate it. You can do the same as well. It's just got some of the settings already set to be a magazine. I'm going to call mine video gun. Open this up, and first you can change the attachment mesh by going to the viewport, and you can select the mesh here, and you can change the mesh over there. Next up, we can go to class defaults and find the attachment category, and in here you can set that it's a magazine attachment. You can set that we're attaching it to the magazine socket on the weapon skeleton. These two settings I will explain in the attachment video, but for a magazine you generally want attach when unhidden to be true. Again, you can hover over and there's information about these settings separately. And the field of view and camera settings, I will go over all of these in the attachment video, or you can again hover over them for more info. So we've got our attachment blueprint. Next, we're going to go back to where we had our original animations here. The first thing we want to do is open up our attach animation. And in here, we're going to right click, add a notify, skeletal notifies, and we want spawn weapon attachment. So we'll click to add that. And we'll right click and add another one, and we want to do attach weapon attachment. So for a magazine, usually, going back to our attachment, if this is true, it means that the magazine will be attached right when we spawn it. So we want it to be spawned about here. The attach isn't used for the magazine, but I've included that in here just in case you might need it. And then on our, then we can save this. Next, we're going to go to our detach animation, open that up, and we'll add a new notify, and we're going to use the remove attachment, and we'll add the, the destroy attachment. Now you can position these where you like. I want the destroy about here because that's where he's putting the magazine away, so that's where I want to destroy it. And then I can save this. We're going to go back to the content browser, we'll right click the attach, create anim montage, and then we'll do the same for the detach and create an anim montage. We'll open up the attach first, and in here you want to make sure that it's set to the post AO group, and do the same for the detach. So it should be post AO group here. Then you can save those. Lastly, for the swap animation, what we'll do is we'll take the detach one, we want to duplicate it. You can call it swap, we'll put swap in the name, mag swap. Open that up, and you want to set the blend out time to 0, and that's all you need to do for the swap. Once that's done, we need to actually create an item that we can pick up for our magazine. So I'm going to go to the item list. I'll create a new item. I'm just going to call this Video Gun Mag. I'm not going to bother filling out all of the top information because there's separate videos for that. But I will set the mag as the static mesh. I will scroll down. I'm going to just use the ammo icon here for the icons. So we need the move and inventory. These are all fine, we can leave those alone. So our magazine is a container, so we do need to set it to contain items. We can leave all of these settings alone. I will recommend disabling use weight. The next important thing is the container restriction type. We want to set this to allowed items, and then the ammo that we want to be able to load into this magazine, we need to add to the restriction items. So to do that, we just click the little plus, go to data table and make sure it's set to a master item list, and then set the row name to the ammo type you want. I'm going to pick the normal ammo here, and if you want to add different ammo types, you can just click this and repeat the process. For container type, it needs to be set to magazine, and allow container window. Normally for magazines, I'd recommend keeping this off. We do need to use the item limit count limit, so that'll be true, and we'll set this to whatever you want your ammo limit for this magazine to be. So for me, I'm going to choose 30. And that's everything for container details. There's separate documentation and a video on all of those settings you can check out if you want to know more about those. We're going to go down to attachment details here, so you can just open that up. This is an attachment, so we want to tick this on. Attachment should be the blueprint we just created, so video gun attachment. Our icon, I'm just going to use the same one I used earlier. Then we've got our attach animation, so this is going to be our montage we just created, and again you can set multiple animations for different skeletal meshes if you want to here, but I'm just going to use the one, and I'm going to search for video gun. This will be the attach, then we'll do the same for detach, video gun detach, and then exactly the same again for the swap. Video gun swap. Then we've got can only remove / add when the weapon is held. This basically means that the character has to be holding this weapon, has to be holding the weapon to be able to remove this magazine attachment, and it can't be moved in the inventory instead, so you can set this to true if you like. Then we've got our weapon attachment animation, so those are our the animations for our actual weapons skeleton. So we're going to search for our weapon skeleton, so the sorry, not the M4, the video gun. We can select that, and then we'll select video gun. This is the attach, so we'll search for attach. So we want the gun animation there, and then exactly the same but for the detach, not mannequin, video gun, and then we want video gun detach there. Now you've got the first person animations here that you can set. For this video I don't have any specific ones for first person, so I'm just going to use the third person ones. You can just copy the ones we set up here and paste them in down here. If you have your own first person ones you want to use, this would be where you set those. We can leave these as mannequin as well. If there's only one option, then it doesn't matter what skeletal mesh you have, it will always use this option. So you don't need to worry about setting the skeletal meshes if you don't want to. And then that's it for the magazine item. We can save this now. We just need to go back to our video gun holdable blueprint, and we need to set the go to attachments, and we need to add that we need to add our new attachment to allowed attachments. So we'll click the plus, we'll click the little drop down here, and we want to find video gun magazine attach, and we can add that there. This basically means that we can actually add it to the weapon. And then we can actually set default attachments as well. I'm going to do this now just so I can show you how. So you just click the little plus, click this drop down. Data table should be the master item list. And here you can set starting attachments for the gun. So I can search for my video gun mag and set that there. So now when we start the game, the mag will already be attached to the gun. And one other thing we can do is go search for allowed ammo types. So it's already set to the ammo type we set in our magazine, so that's good. You want to make sure that if you can put a magazine into a gun, that they have the matching allowed ammo types, otherwise you will get an error when it tries to fire ammo that's not meant for the weapon. So just to let you know. Also make sure that you don't have any entries in here that say none on the data table, because that will also cause errors. So it should be set up like this. If you want to add additional ammo types, you can just click the plus button here, select the data table and set it to master item, and then you can set another item type, but we'll delete this one because I'm not using it. Then we can compile and save this. So now we're ready to take a quick look and see if everything's working. We can hit play. We can see that our magazine is on our gun there, so I'm going to hold this. I can open up the inventory and we can see the ammo limit is working. It's 0 out of 31 if you can't see it. I can't move it because it's held, so I'll just equip it. You can see it a bit better there. If I equip the gun, we can double click and remove the magazine, and our animation is playing properly. We can reattach it. We can quickly grab some ammo, and we have to remove the mag, so we can load the ammo into the mag, put it back in, and you can see our shooting is working as well. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Hopefully it was helpful. If there's any questions, please leave a comment, and thank you for watching.